there like a countdown, or we just sort of?
I don't hear the music. I'm listening, waiting for the music.
That'll be good. Good evening, and welcome to the regularly scheduled Rochester Downtown Development Authority for Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. Madam Recording Secretary of the roll, please.
Tony LaPuma.
Here.
Tanya Karsten.
Here.
Bob Bloomingdale.
Here.
Eric Diana.
Here.
Why do I still have Marilyn?
I'm
Well,
just
you're
saying, I
still
don't know
there.
what you
Still
guys
there,
are
yeah.
gonna do without me. I'm really getting concerned.
Mayor Gibson.
Here.
Chairman Giovinelli.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent.
Well, I guess I should go on, right? Marilyn Trent for council liaison.
Oh, yeah, here.
Lisa Swiftney for chamber.
Here.
Don Sinkowitz for
Here.
historical commission. Paul Haig is absent, and Christie Tovar.
Here.
All right,
There's a quorum.
all right, fantastic. We have a quorum. It was, part of our delay of game was because we did not have a quorum, so now we're good to go. So good evening, and welcome thank you for tuning in to our regularly scheduled soiree. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting on September 21. Is there any questions or a motion in our future?
So moved.
Motion by the mayor, support by Mr. Bloomingdale. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Audience comments, there's none, so we'll go straight to the liaison reports. City Council, Madam Trent.
Okay. Short and sweet. There's two items. You may recall the Bill LaPuma Spirit Award that was announced here first. It was announced at City Council on October 10th. And Renee Perkins and Laura Gallagher were the winners, and they came and they gave a brief thank you for the award, and City Council acknowledged that. Number two, the new development, the elevator property. May have heard of that? Maybe? News? No new news there, except that they wanted an easement. They, meaning the Mosherie Elevate LLC, were asking for an easement because apparently Rochester City owned a little bit of that little snippet. And so it was granted, and it was based upon the commitment that Mosherie was going to renovate that barn, that wonderful elevator barn that we all love, and it's iconic to Rochester. And they're gonna, and they promised to renovate it. And I'm repeating that twice. Thank you very much.
That's good news, I suppose. That property has been in and out of play for years and years and years, so I'm glad to see some action there. I think most folks would be in agreement with that. Thank you for your report. Appreciate it. Not used to you sitting on that side of the desk just yet, but we'll get there after a few meetings, I think.
I'm sure. We'll all get there,
Right.
I'm not used to that either.
Chamber of Commerce, Lisa Swiftney, welcome. Appreciate you coming to take inform us as to the things going on at Chamber. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, Maggie was very honored to be asked to participate in the Next Generation pilot program at Zoom meeting yesterday. So she wanted me to let everyone know about that. We have parade applications are now open, and downloadable applications can be found on our Chamber website. Let's see here. Next thing, Bill and Sharon Byers are the grand marshals for the 2022 Rochester Area Hometown Christmas Parade. So mark your calendar for Thursday, December 1st for the Grand Marshal Gala. And then the Chamber is also very excited to be able to collaborate with the DDA to bring the floats that are participating in the Christmas Parade downtown to participate for the caroling in the city event. And then we have some upcoming ribbon cuttings with new businesses. Gifts for All God's Children is going to be on Tuesday, October the 25th. We have Rochester Pediatric Dentistry on Tuesday, November the 1st. And Chief Financial Credit Union potentially is Wednesday, November the 9th. So all of those ribbon cuttings are also listed on the Chamber website as well.
Fantastic, and I'm glad to see Chief finally getting over the curb there. That's going to be great. I've been waiting for that one for a while, so that's fantastic. Thank you for your update, and welcome to the DDA.
Thank you.
Historical Commission, Mr. Sinkowitz, good to see you, sir.
Thank you. I have two items. I'll start with the simpler one. We've been receiving inquiries about the Rochester Heritage Festival for next year. So that'll be again during the Memorial Day weekend, the 27th and 28th of May, with some time available on the 26th, Friday, to do some setups for the various groups. The group that was the earliest to inquire about it was the 10th Michigan Infantry. They'll be celebrating their 160th year of the event of 1863. So they'll be focused on that time period in the middle there. Also, I have a report from Samantha Lawrence and Lynn Anderson. Samantha, of course, from the museum, and Lynn from the Historical Commission. Tabitha at the museum is digitalized 18 scrapbooks. The scrapbooks are for various years in Rochester, all the way back to 1960, which doesn't sound long, but that is a long time ago. Scrapbooks can be tricky to digitize since the process did take a couple of months for them to do. The digitalized versions can be accessed on the museum's online collection, and in the meeting minutes, I'll give a copy of this. Here's the website. Next, they're reviewing the collection for other items to digitize. We will also be updating the collection for finding aid to include links to online resources, such as the online catalog records. The museum transitioned to a web version of the Past Perfect this year, and our online collection catalog was updated along with it. So again, that was from Samantha and Lynn Anderson. Thank you.
It's fantastic, and it's great. I've been really following that in our community, plus also in Detroit too. And there's just this push for people just collecting all the stuff and creating it and making it available online. So it's very easy, and it's just fun to kind of sit back and look at how things were in much simpler times, right? So, and whatnot. But yeah, thanks a ton for that. We appreciate the update. Principal Shopping District, Paul is not here, but Christie will be taking.
Sure. So, Principal Shopping District, as you might imagine, we talked a lot about holiday. The two events that were approved for recommendation to City Council were Lanyap, which is taking place on November 21st, and Caroling in the City, which will be on December 11th. And both of those requests will be forwarded up to council for their consideration.
Fantastic. Powering through the agenda. I love it. Election of DDA Secretary, me. So with Marilyn leaving and joining council, she vacated the secretary position. It carries a great deal of responsibility within the DDA. So but this is the completion of the board, so we wanted to make sure that we filled that position. It's not, she's actually not taking notes. We have a professional secretary doing that, right?
What
But
does that secretary
it was
do?
our moral support and our moral compass, right?
Yes.
So
And also, if the chairman or the vice chairman are unable to chair the meeting that night, it would fall to the secretary.
yeah. So you're like the
I think that's
Speaker of
only
the
happened
House.
like once, but
You're like the Speaker of the House, so there you go. So at any rate, we need somebody to fill that position because it's a required board position and it is open at the moment. So I don't know if anybody had given some thought or would like to give some thought to being secretary, and then maybe we could take it up next meeting. Because we've got sort of a skeleton crew here this evening, I'm wondering if it's, probably worthwhile to, unless somebody's got a burning desire to be the secretary tonight. If you snooze, you lose. We can go ahead and move on, right? But it's, if anybody has any interest in that, I'd love to, we'd entertain that, and it's just a function of putting your name in play, making a motion to accept, and then voting on that, and that's it, so,
That is it.
that is it.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Because
so-
I don't think I knew I was secretary till, I don't know.
you did mention that at a meeting, yes. It's concerning.
I never was asked to do anything secretary-ish like.
I would consider doing it only if Marilyn walks me through the steps.
Yeah,
of
she'll give you the
how
job
not
description.
to do the job.
Yeah, she'll give you the job description, so.
I'll give you the job. Yeah, I know you could do it, because I did it.
If somebody asks you if you're the secretary, you just say yes.
That was really it, and I failed.
Okay.
We'll get you a business card if it'll help. So was that an official voluntold?
That's an official voluntold.
All right, very good. Anyone else? We have to get the big sumo suits out and rough it out, or?
I can see everyone's fighting over it.
Right, exactly. All right, is there a motion in our future with respect to this nomination?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor for Tanya Carson?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome to the board.
You know, Lisa just gave me a look, and I was like, wait, what? Am I supposed to be doing something?
So Tony and I are not going to be here next meeting, so here's the keys.
Welcome to the leadership of Rochester.
That's
Just
right.
to prove me wrong.
No, thank you for your service, Tony. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Moving on, Main Street Next Gen pilot update, Christie.
So many of you have participated in the first round of Main Street Next Gen programming. For anyone who's not familiar with it, we were selected through Main Street Oakland County as a pilot program nationally by Main Street America. It's to create a program that is to support business, to support downtowns like ourselves that have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, have run through all of the Main Street programming and are looking for, okay, so now that we've done all the things that we were supposed to do and we've gotten to that level, what's next? What else do you have for us? And so they came and did on-site visits in the 4 communities, which, as a reminder, Rochester, Royal Oak, Ferndale, and Farmington. They did that back this summer. And then this last week, they were hosting Zoom calls with each of the 4 communities. And through their visits that they did on-site, there were 3 areas that they wanted to get more information. Social changes, economic changes, and technology. So they set up Zoom calls within the communities, and then we had to reach out to people we thought would be excited to talk about those things. Ben was with us, Nick was with us for one. We had about 30-plus people because we also included nonprofits, local organizations. We also included a lot of the businesses because a lot of this impacts them. So we hosted those yesterday. I did hear today from John Bride that we had the most in terms of number of participants as well as the most robust discussions. No surprise there. So the outcomes of those Zoom calls, along with the ones that they had in the other communities, now they're going to start putting that together as some type of package of a deliverables that they will be bringing back to us of suggestions of how this program could be packaged and move forward. The ultimate goal is to have a framework and official program that they would be debuting at the National Main Street Conference, Main Street Now, in Boston in the end of March of next year. And I'm sure we would probably be invited to sit in on that session. So that's where we are right now. So I would suspect maybe by end of the year or January, we'll have that document. And I think John will probably come and present it to us. So we'll have a little working session with it. That's my guess.
It was, at least from my perspective, it being on both the calls and then the meeting earlier, it's actually very interesting, right? So it's kind of getting us, all right, so we've done what we've done, but now what is the next iteration? What does the next step look like? And the dialogue, I thought the discussion was great on both issues. So in fact, I learned a ton, discovered some new resources, even with Main Street Oakland County, that we probably can make ourselves avail ourselves of, that merchants would be able to benefit from, and that sort of thing. So I thought it was great. So, it's certainly time well spent, and we are a verbose bunch, so that doesn't shock me that we were the ones that had the most discussion. I appreciate everybody's involvement, all the chiefs, Nick, Christy, obviously, and the team, and the merchants, and everybody else that kind of participated. So it was good.
No, I was just saying, I didn't get invited.
Yeah, we spared you of it. It was, if there's one person I can appreciate who is the busiest man in Rochester, it is definitely the mayor. The dude's everywhere. So I figured anything we could do to at least take one off and sort of, we subcommitted it for you. Anyway, so it was great. It worked out well, so I appreciate that. Next up is DDA goals and objectives discussion. So we've been talking about at executive committee kind of getting ahead of goals and objectives in January, right? So we're trying to break it down into the logical disciplines within the DDA site, biz dev, and whatnot. So tonight's discussion was just sort of a primer on business development. Wanted to sort of open the floor up. Christy's got some handouts here, about to be coming our way in a second. But kind of open the floor up as to thoughts of things you wanted to cover. And we don't have to solve any of the world's problems tonight. It's more or less just coming up with some ideas for business development that we can have them start thinking about as we start building the framework for goals and objectives for budgeting. So it's fairly self-explanatory. I'll just TO it to you, and then you can sort of walk us through it if you'd like.
Sure. So we wanted to do a special focus each meeting leading up to our January goals and objectives. So next month will be site development, and I'll probably do a similar sheet for this. So the sheet you have in front of you, the top list are all the things that business development is currently working on. For anyone who's not super familiar with the committee, it's made up of about 14 people. It's downtown property owners, business owners, residents, and also people from the greater Rochester community. We work on business recruitment and retention. Nick and I are the liaisons to the committee. The top 5 things are the main programs that we are working on currently, and then the potential projects, those are 2 things that have been discussed at the business development meeting table over the last several months. Bob also serves on that committee as a board member. So I just thought it'd be helpful for anybody if you're not familiar with what business development does, and Paul Haig is the chair of that committee. So I thought this might be helpful, and I'm gonna give Nick a copy of it too, so he can chime in.
So with that set up, of course, the stuff above the line, above where it says, the current stuff is what we do now. We budget for that every year, and those are the things that business development does do. In terms of other things or changes, we're just kind of looking for some discussion items. Is there anything that anyone has any thoughts of that we ought to be looking at, or at least suggest business development sort of take a look at with respect to, providing more value in the business development area, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
is there like annually like a needs assessment that the biz dev committee actually gives to the businesses in Rochester to like get their feedback? Is that something that actually happens, or?
So we've done it a few different ways.
Okay.
So back in the day, we actually used to do an electronic survey followed up by a door-to-door. That was something that was a directive of City Council. They were very interested in hearing more about what our businesses felt, the services what services we were providing that were valuable, which ones maybe weren't as valuable, and then what were additional things that we could do for them. Since then, as technology has evolved, we are now in front of most of those businesses, either virtually, electronically, or in person, almost all the time, and asking for that feedback. We now have follow-up surveys after events and promotions, and then we do, depending on the committee, have things that we'll send out, not even just annually, but quarterly or whatever, asking people's opinion about things. We are circling back to the merchant forum meetings, which was another way that we gathered input. We hadn't been doing those obviously during COVID. We hadn't up until now, because we did send out a survey saying, hey, we're thinking of getting Merchant Forum back online. What kind of topics do you want to hear about? And what we had heard from a lot of people is, could we hang on just a little bit? I still have staffing issues. I'm working all day. I don't think I'm coming to evening meetings. So we're hoping to get those back online in '23. So there's several different ways that we gather that input. But do we just, for the sake of doing it, do a needs assessment each year? We do not. We're trying to focus our time and their time a little bit more on things that are going on when opportunities present themselves, things like that. Because we found, quite frankly, when we send out an annual survey, it's generally ignored. But if
like
it's something.
like the water advisory thing?
Yeah, because it's like, for instance, we'd send it out to 400 businesses and
How's
we
my
get
water run?
30 back.
Okay.
So, yeah, so now we focus on, hey, we want to know about X, send her out, rather than waiting till the one time a year to send out and get a bunch of info. So that's us.
And the other thing that you sort of just, I was going to ask, have we done it in a, I don't want to say a post-COVID world, because COVID's still here, but it's not as prominent as it was a couple of years ago. So, yeah, but just that's where, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Is maybe the other way to look at it too is through the attendance at these particular things where people are making an effort to come to the trainings and the workshops and stuff like that. Merchant forums, I think on balance are pretty well attended. So that tells me that there's interest in continuing that. But just, I mean, your point's well taken. Just because we've always done it that way, we can't get stuck in that trap. We got to be continually thinking of doing things better. But I understand what you're saying too. Nobody wants to, it's like everybody's slammed and they just don't have the time for it. So.
Yeah, and we're hoping come next year, because we've already been warning everybody, like, it's coming.
Yeah.
We're already getting funding from the county to start bringing back the workshops and things like that, so we're going to be ready to rock and roll.
Gotcha. So, I mean, the whole goal of business development, at least from my perspective, is specifically that. We're trying to create an environment where businesses see the value in coming to downtown Rochester to locate versus someplace else. What is that extra, lanyap, no pun intended, but that's a little something extra for the, for the businesses to come down here. So these type of things, I hope and pray, and I think that that's pretty much reality is that they see that because of the DDA and the involvement in the things that we do is sort of that added, a little something added. In terms of business incubator and accelerator, what were your thoughts on that?
So two things we talked about. The accelerator is what we talked about when we came back, when we did our presentation from Main Street last summer, going to that and about the storage or the shipping containers. That was the accelerated piece of that. So we started talking about that, but there have been some other things that committee's working on that I was approached by a property owner that may have a large property coming available. And he had said, if that did happen, does the DDA have any ideas? And of course, I was like, incubator, right here. So that might be something if the board, as we talk through it, if that's something of interest, because I think that at a certain point, and Nick and I have been talking about this quite a bit of who's our next entrepreneur. I think what we're finding is that the new people that have shown up and have been putting in businesses are hyper-local. They're Rochester Hills, grew up here, lived here, love it, want to reinvest in our community. During COVID, they decided to make some different changes and don't want to do what they did and want to instead work through themselves, do whatever. But we're also finding both at our Kris Kringle Market, the Farmers Market, the Thursday night markets, there's a lot of home-based businesses that started through Etsy, a lot of handmade, a lot of maker spaces. And is there a way to maybe capture some of those? Because a lot of those are coming to us saying, hey, I'd love to, I'm thinking brick and mortar. I did this for my home, but my next level needs to be that. And how do we get there? And we have had experience doing pop-ups before, so I think that there may be an opportunity. We've talked about it quite a bit at DDA. That was something actually that we had talked about at Village Shoe-In, talked to Chuck Thibodeau about that, but he went a different direction, which we're totally fine with, which is great. But we think that might be another opportunity because I think there's going to be some small batch businesses coming up that we might want to capture. Because the new entrepreneurs, and Nick and I have been talking about this, we used to have like a waiting list. Now it seems more like something comes up, and unless there's some issue with the rent or the size of the space or something like that, it goes like that before Nick and I even get a chance to get at it. But before, we used to have a general waiting list of somebody, look, we'd know what kind of business they want to put in, square footage, all that. That's not the case anymore. We don't have that waiting list. And so we're just kind of looking around saying, so where are they? And who are they? And what could we do? And I know that as a part of the market research that we did previously for the farmers market, town square hybrid that we were working on, we did do a lot of research on maker spaces and retail versus food and some different hybrids of what that could look like. And it could be really interesting. And obviously it could pay for itself and even generate some income. So, but there is an opportunity that might be presenting itself to us. And so we've been kind of poking around with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think every conversation's worth having.
I just had a question, or maybe it's more of a comment. Talking about being an incubator, have we thought about even going further into it with the younger kids, like partnering with Rochester Community Schools and their business? I think they have like a virtual business or something where they work with kids where they could maybe like have one day of a pop-up just to get a taste of it, so it will like light a fire under them to keep it,
Sure.
maybe something like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we haven't gotten to that level because we haven't even gotten a directive from this board that anybody wants us to work on this. But I'm trying to plant some seeds tonight, I'm hoping, and that's what I'm thinking we're going to be doing over the next couple months of some ideas. Because I feel like at goals and objectives, a lot of times there's like so much information, I don't think we get to have that dialogue that maybe we'd like to have in the moment. And then I always get calls afterwards going, oh, you know what I thought about? So I'm thinking if we start thinking about it now, by the time we get to January, then we can have a really substantial discussion that everybody's familiar with a lot of the concepts. Or there's things that we're talking about tonight that then you're like, hey, how about we reach out to this and start adding it? And then I think we might grab this synergy that we might come up with a couple interesting concepts that then we start to pursue and see if there's something there.
Just to tell what we just did the last 2 weeks with the schools.
Sure. So you may be familiar with small business at Rochester High School. Nick and I talk about that quite a bit. We did it over the last 5 years where we did Shark Tank with them, where the kids in the small business classes actually have to come up with a concept. And that kept evolving over time. We actually got a grant from Genesis Credit Union to actually fund each of the kids, and we did a pop-up market at the fire hall, where we gave them $200 of seed money. They had to pitch Nick, he was the banker, with their business plan and then decide whether or not they get their money. And so then they get $200 to actually invest in a physical product that they would have to make and then sell we did a holiday market at the fire station. And then it was really interesting for the kids to figure out, what they did, what they didn't. So of course, when COVID hit, as we'd been expanding that program, it kind of hit the brakes. So we've done it virtually with them the last couple years, where we reviewed pitches and then we got back to them. So now we're back again. Karen Malsbury, who I think has come before this board before, she now has a promotion. She's with administration and she is their director of career readiness, really working with the kids because not all of their paths are college. There's a lot of other places that they're going. So she's working with the kids and with the teachers now. So she's elevated that beyond Rochester High School. So Nick and I last Thursday and then again yesterday spent time with the small business students from Rochester Adams, from Rochester, and from Stony Creek. About 100 kids over the 2 days. They started out in Rochester Hills and then came to us on Thursday where they got a tour of Innovation Hills and then came over with us and then they did a scavenger hunt going and visiting the businesses downtown. On the one that we did yesterday, they were supposed to have the same format. Unfortunately, with the rain and snow in the forecast, they didn't want the kids walking around the park. So Karen had called Nick and I at about 9 o'clock Monday night and said, do you think you could fill another hour and a half of content? So I threw together a whole marketing thing for them, and so we did that. But the kids were really interested in what we were talking about. They had maps of the city that they could circle areas and talk about what kind of business they'd like to open. And what was really vastly different from 5 years ago to now, a lot of the kids would say, there's nothing here for me downtown. Now what they're saying is, yeah, I go here, I go there, but I'd like to have this down here, which I think has really gotten us further because before kids were like, I don't go downtown because there's nothing here. They're not saying that anymore. And then of the businesses that we talked to them yesterday, asking them what type of business they'd like to open, the majority of them were businesses that involve gathering, a cat cafe. The one we thought was really interesting, intergenerational cafe.
Oh, I love that.
I know, isn't that fun? So I thought that was a really cool one, but everything they talked, an old school arcade. They wanted places to go gather, which I think is something that's on point to a lot of, we've been talking about. Am I hitting all these points, Nick? I feel like I am. They loved Nick. They were taking selfies with him before he left. It was very adorable.
Oh,
There might have been a marijuana shop involved.
I don't know what happens at these, but consistently, the high schoolers, they love Nick. I do all the heavy lifting and bring all the stuff, and then they're like, we love you, Nick. I'm like, fine.
And they'd be the people to fill up an incubator. I guarantee it, 2 or 3 of those groups
Yeah.
find a way to start a business in that building.
That's-
Not the indoor-outdoor skydiving, not them. Not that one, no.
I like that idea.
Yeah, they're like, it's an indoor skydiving, but it's outdoors.
Right. But that's good, right? So the whole idea is trying to pique interest and get that, thing sort of boiling, right? So.
Yeah, and so we're gonna continue that next semester. We'll be seeing more kids. They're gonna be working on their business plans and then continuing through that
Got it. So to
process.
answer your question is, yeah, there's significant involvement and we're
Yeah.
trying to keep that up. And I've actually had interns that work for us from Karen, so it's a great program.
Karen's
Yeah,
great,
She's
yeah.
great. Is any other additional thoughts of things? So I would continue to feed this stuff to Christy. And what I'd like to see on the, as we send out the agenda each month, sort of a recap of what we've already been talking about. So that way it sort of stays front mind. I think at the end, so we've got BizDev, November is going to be site,
Site.
and then December is going to be going to the bar. Oh, you, that's right.
Yeah, I got a few things.
Okay, all right. But at the end, we'll recap all of that, and then when we sit down in January for goals and objectives, which we haven't, we'll figure out what that's gonna be at. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe at the studio. Yeah.
Sure.
But we'll go through these, we'll recap all these, but I just want to kind of get that sort of, I'm thinking about. But the one thing that we did talk about with respect to the incubator in the Main Street discussions earlier this week. So my oldest son is a junior at Marquette University in Milwaukee, so he lives in downtown Milwaukee. And they've got this really great market in the Third Ward. I've had anybody's been there before, but it's similar. It's kind of like that on steroids. But they've got, within there, they've got all these little shops all over the place. That is precisely what we're talking about. So obviously, we don't have the budget for that, but it's, thinking big. That's sort of, on the bigger end. And it talk about creating space and getting people downtown and doing it does all of that in spades. So. Yeah, it's good stuff. So, once again, we'll go through all these. It's all gonna be cost benefit. There's not a dumpster full of $100 bills out back, unfortunately. Although, if there was, Christie would find it. But that said, I don't wanna, I'll just speak for me, but I don't wanna discourage you guys from thinking and spending time on the stuff, don't spin your wheels. If you, there's things that you're gonna know, if you wanna, do a, hey, should we be thinking about this? We could run it by executive or whatever, but, you guys are the most creative people I've ever met, so I would just say, run with it until you like, yeah, this'll never fly. I mean, I think you know us pretty good, so.
Yeah, there's nothing we're doing, we're not spending any money, we're just.
Yeah,
it's
no,
all-
spending brain
It's all
power.
about brain power and time,
Yeah,
that's
no,
it.
100%. Gotcha. All right, cool. Anything else in this particular matter? All right, thank you for entertaining that. So next meeting will be site, so anything capital, in the district, kind of put your thinking caps on and anything that you can think of between now and then, even just shoot Christie or me a note, and we'll make sure that we put it on, at least in the agenda stuff. Executive Director update, Madam Director.
We already just covered the small business program. I did want to pass this along. I know a few people saw it. As Marilyn mentioned, we did take Linda Gallagher and Renee Perkins before council last week to represent their award, and Tony did that, and we got a really nice letter to the board from Linda. So I wanted to just kind of pass it along if anybody wants to take a look at that while we go. Also, Holiday Expo, we only have 3 spaces left now. So if you're interested in that, it's only $100 a space, but that is, we do have the entire ballroom, so we're gonna have, if we fill up, about 65 different businesses from the greater Rochester area there, so they're very excited about that. Big Bright Light Show installation is well underway. We think we're gonna take advantage of the warm weather coming at the end of the week to hopefully keep moving things along, but you may see them on Saturdays because they did ask for approval to continue to work on Saturdays, just to make sure that we get everywhere on time. We also do have a new color in the show this year, so I think it's only gotten up on 1 building so far, but if you're driving down Main Street on the east side, look at Be Seen Boutique in the East 400 block. It's pink and purple, and it's pretty fab. Just saying. So there's that. Then one big thing that happened today, we had a meeting with Oakland County. The council members that are here may recall that Oakland County had come in and that you had asked them directly if Fire and Ice was coming back, and they had said yes. So we reached out to them immediately, of course, and then it being a lot of back and forth because a lot of new people, a lot of the people that were part of it weren't there anymore, and so they were really trying to understand if they actually could pull it off. So last Thursday, they called us and said, can you come next Wednesday at 1 o'clock? We said, yes, we can. So Nick, Jenna, and I went over there, and I'm pleased to announce that Fire and Ice will officially be back. We're very excited. Lots of details that we're still working out, but what I can tell you are the dates, which are, hold on, January 20th and 21st. We are not going to do the Sunday. We're going to do just the Friday, Saturday. And we are planning on bringing back fireworks, which would be where they've been in the past on the Suave piece of property. However, the rest of the event will be moving to the parcel south of the Western Knitting Mill, the empty rewalled lot. Back at the beginning, when Fire and Ice first started, that's where everything was, and we received approval from Frank today that he's going to allow us to use that property. So everything's going to be brought back that way, and then the collegiate carving competition, which is one of the elements that we as the DDA and the PSD were able to continue on with over the last 2 years when the county had to step away, and we've had it up on 4th Street. That's going to be relocated to the Farmers Market parking lot along with some food trucks and make that a fireworks viewing area. So we're really going to maximize that whole area without having to do all the traffic moves across 2nd Street and all those fun things. So more details to come, but we got official word today, so we're pretty excited.
Excellent.
Yes.
Is that also an events and marketing update as well?
It is now. So, because we actually, when we got the call, we had to hold the magazine because it was about to go with the Snow Glow for completely different dates and a completely different event. So we threw ourselves on top of that. So that would be a new update, is that the In-Town magazine just left for the printer this evening after we made a few changes to adjust with that.
But wait, there's more.
Yes, exactly. So, other than that, I just from events and marketing, I would share that we had our Halloween Fest and Trick or Treat downtown this last weekend. Weather was very nice. We had about over 3,000 kids on Main Street trick or treating and enjoying that. Then down at the Halloween Fest, we had about 1,000 kids in that lot, and we probably had a few hundred following behind the fire truck for the actual costume parade. So lots of fun photos. Fun was had by all. What was nice and something that I really have to give kudos to Jenna for, Farmers Market lot is a very large parking lot. And so we really wanted to fill in more activities. So we reached out to local organizations and we had like 12 different organizations step up and do little booths where they're doing crafts with the kids or doing games or giving out treats or something like that. So it really made a nice experience that literally every couple steps you took, there was something to see or do. So I think that was pretty great. And our 12-foot skeleton was very well received. So thank you to the fire department for building him for us and carrying him over. So,
right.
yes,
Fire department, other duties is assigned, just like Nick's job title.
yes.
Fantastic. Well, once, it's such a pillar in our community, that particular event, and you guys just do such a killer job with everything else, but just the sheer volume of kids and folks coming out, and it's just great to see people out and about. Financial report is in your meeting packet. If there's any questions, we can entertain those, or you can direct them to the director for follow-up. Business development?
Business development, we actually did move our meeting because Paul's gone, so we're not meeting till the end of the month.
Okay. All right, so stand by on that
But they're
one.
working on Holiday Expo is their main
Gotcha.
purpose
And
right
then
these
site?
days.
Site, nothing really going on, but I'd like to throw out there, I would like to get Bob, Roger, and you and Nick together, and we'll get together and we'll go over our goals and objectives for the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll give you a buzz, Bob, we'll set something, maybe we'll sit at the restaurant, have a couple conies, and figure out our goals and objectives.
I like that idea.
That's part of having Tony on the board. All the meetings happen at the exact place you want to be at to have those meetings.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Anything else on site?
No.
No, okay, very good. From miscellaneous, anybody have any parting words of wisdom?
I just had one.
There was, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't mention it in my report, but it was on there, just in case anybody didn't see it. I am gonna go on vacation at the end of the month. My first one in a while, kind of excited about it, but I am gonna be turning off my phone basically. So if you really need me, the girls can find me, but other than that, I'm gonna try and shut down the email and just take a week. So.
No
yes.
worries.
But
And
if you
then-
need anything, you can get Nick or Jenna or Taylor.
Yep. Reminder that our meetings are moved up a week. So it's 9th?
9th, November 9th.
So November 9th is going to be our next meeting. I did also want to bring up, there was some questions about the boil or the flushing of the hydrants.
Tonight?
Yeah, so just, if you got any brown water, just turn your hose on outside, just let it run and be done with it. So there were some folks that had asked about that, and, this is obviously not city council, so I'm not gonna try and get on that. But I figured we had at least this opportunity, so I would mention, since it's happening tonight, and people are gonna no doubt be calling the police department or the fire department anyway, going, my water, what the heck's going on? It's normal, it's fine, it's not gonna kill you, it's just a little bit of silt or whatever it is, and carry on. Although I just put a brand new hot water in here 2 days ago, so. I know, no worries, all good.
I figured you as a tankless guy.
Yeah, no,
No?
not quite, no. I got a buddy of mine's a plumber, and I do his taxes, he does my plumbing, it works out great, so. All right, with that, I think we're good, meeting adjourned.
All right.
Chrissy, when are you leaving?
The 30th. Oh. So I'm still home.